Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Friday, July 10th, 2020, 9:30 p.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We are doing a show tonight because we could not do one this morning. We had a little power outage in the neighborhood due to a freak storm that hit yesterday evening at about 8 o'clock. Power popped off at about 20 after. Huge crack resounded through the neighborhood, and I had thought, well, that was definitely a lightning strike, but power immediately shut down, and they did not get it back up and running until a little after 11 this morning. I was careful to avoid opening the freezer or the fridge, hoping that I wouldn't have any trouble with food going bad or anything in the freezer thawing out. Nothing worse than losing stocked up food during a mostly stay-at-home sort of period in our lives. You know, it's been 3.5, almost 4 months since people were generally staying at home, myself included. Just get out for essentials, and of course every week or every 2 weeks when I was getting out to the store, I'd pick up some stuff to cook up immediately, but always grab a little extra. Lay it in, stockpile it, just in case things went even further sideways and going to the store was not going to be possible. So, freezer pretty well packed, and the fridge pretty full, and the cabinets pretty full. I wasn't worried about the cabinets with the power going out, but the freezer and the fridge and all of that. But after about an hour, after the power was on for about an hour, I checked in on some things to grab something to eat. Left the freezer pretty much alone, just did a quick check. Seems like things are alright. The fridge, pretty safe. I had a couple of hard-boiled eggs that were in there and made it through the day, so I'm hoping that's a good sign for everything else too. If the hard-boiled eggs make it, then probably pretty safe. Probably going to be a quiet night. It's not the usual time that I stream, so probably will not have a whole bunch of people in the chat. However, it is Friday, so it is Building Adventures with an eye toward Virtual Tabletop Day. And I wanted to talk about a map I used. It's a Dyson Logos map. It's one of his commercial ones. I usually file off the serial numbers. So as you can see from this one, it does say Wyvernseeker, Wyvernseeker Rock. And I used this as a sort of a side trek. The group I was running beginning in January-ish of 2019 for about a little over a year-long campaign. Started with first level, first edition adventurers. There were 10 and then 9 pretty quickly players in the game. Went down to 8, but went back up to 9, down to 8 over the course of it. But that's a lot of players, so even with low levels, you got to find a way to challenge them. And often that can be overwhelming if the tactics are a little thin. So They learned pretty quickly after losing a few characters that they had to coordinate a little more. There were a few that dropped pretty early. And after they were like first, second level, it became pretty obvious that they were planning to move toward some sections of the campaign world, of the setting, that were pretty difficult, even for a large group of third level characters. They would find it challenging, and they were all hovering around second level and just barely. And with a couple of new players, or new characters for a couple of the players, could have been more loss. You don't have a lot of access at that point to healing, magical healing, aside whatever the spellcasters in the party have, and even that's thin. The within a couple more levels, they had aligned themselves pretty tightly with the temple of one of the clerics in the group, and they picked up a second cleric, and they also had a dual class cleric thief, and they had a druid. So by the time they were third or fourth level, they were in pretty good shape. But they needed a way to get from second-ish level to third, fourth level as a group before they could go where they were planning to go. So I kind of took it on myself to throw some things in the way that they would run across and be tempted by, that could help them build up a bit, experience-wise, pick up a few items that would help them out, create situations where they could get back and forth to town a few times to go up in level and cement a stronger relationship with the temple that they were already tight with, so they had ready access to spend their wealth on scrolls with healing on it, plus other spells, and potions of healing. Once they were there, their survival rate increased tremendously. But this map was a pretty good one. It was the first of two way stations. We should call them XP pools, since really that's what they were essentially used for, gaining XP before heading off to where they really wanted to go. But this one was tricky, and I want to talk about that. As you can see, I wonder if I bring this over here, if you can then see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now you can see the cursor. Down by that pool, there's an entryway, which is a lowest level. That's over here. And then once you come in, you can go down even lower, but no entrance exit down that way, at a kind of a huge cage area, prison area. And then there's a way up pretty high, and that gets you up to here, right? So you're in this area, and then you still have to go up a ladder, climb the rungs of a ladder to get up and out over here. And then up even further, there's a secret door. So in playing and using this in a face-to-face game, one of the considerations was it'd be nice if they had a way of doing some coordinated recon. So I stripped this map off, got rid of the name. I think I kept I moved this onto the map, I think. I messed around with it a little bit to remove the secret door, but I left the two openings here and here, and before handing them this map, We went through the motions of them searching and doing a sort of a circumnavigate around the tour, this large rock that was jutting out above the rest of the moors. And once they had searched, it was easy enough to say, okay, you see where the river is, you have a way to get down to the lower level below the waterfall. You know there's an opening over there. From your searching from even on this side, you can see that there's another cave because they had gone way out, and somehow somebody had crossed over and was able to check this out before coming back. Eventually they determined, because they saw some goblins guarding out front on this side, they determined this would be the safer way to go down, because they could attack a couple of goblin guards from above while the rest were making their way down here for a full assault on the entryway. In any event, when using this for a virtual tabletop game, I think you would have to do something similar. You'd have to clean this off. You'd have to have some preamble searching to make it fair, to make it make sense for you to give them a map with these entrances known. Now, they could come from this way, and if they come from this way, they can be down here, because we know this ridge doesn't need to extend forever. So they could make their way down here and be aware that this is across beyond the waterfall and see that it looks like there's a way down over there. So they can know about both if they come at this from the south, and then you can give them this map. But again, you'd have to do some work on these. You'd have to definitely hide the secret door. You'd probably want to remove this little sort of landing that is here, because that sort of gives away that there's something unusual going on in this section, and I don't know if you want that. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to leave that to tip them off. But I think for the way we were running it in the face-to-face version, coming in either way and then finding this door over here and then coming at the secret door from the inside actually created a situation where it was, I don't want to say linear, but progressively more tough. They did come in this way. They found a sort of a camping area here for a good number of goblins. And let's look back at this. Regardless of how it was designed, with what intent it was designed, and you can read Dyson's write-up on it at his own website, DysonLogos.com. Just look for Wyvernseeker Rock, and you'll find his write-up for what he intended for this when he created it. For me, this was an ancient dwarven stronghold outpost, really, that included a couple of crypts and a weaponsmithing area and a sort of a prison. So its original use back in the day would have been something like that. How it fell out to be used by goblins then, of course, was that it was abandoned some years, hundreds of years back. It was discovered by goblins. In the meantime, though, there was a mist dragon or a steam dragon, as some people call them. Depends on what you utilize as a source book for the stat block you're going to use. But I think in first edition, I want to say in the Monster Manual 2. Hey, Ink Dweller 8, Death Angel Shadow, thanks for popping in. So one of the goblins is a shaman. In the way I used this, he's kind of held up here in this top level, and he has access to a wand with a certain number of charges, which is a frost wand, which he had used to freeze the occupant who was here when they first got here behind a wall of ice. So trapping the mist dragon behind a wall of ice in this old prison cell was their way of keeping him at bay. And then, of course, they took over the whole place. They had a couple of hobgoblins who were helping them guard the area. I threw in a 5-foot wide, 10-foot wall-to-wall, 10-foot deep pit and added that into the map here, which made this whole long stretch a sort of a gauntlet that would need to be run. And I also gave them a mini ballista so they could fire huge bolts down this hallway to defend it. Because at the end of the day, they've got this whole area, and they are doing what they can with that forge. Not as skilled as the dwarves who originally ran the place, but in any event, putting together some weapons and sending them out to other goblin tribes that are out on the moors. But the one thing they fear more than anything else is this mist dragon escaping from behind this wall of ice. So they're protecting this area on the left more than they're worried about protecting the forge and the weapon smith and the because there's plenty of other goblins over this way too. But if something gets past them and gets over here and releases this mist dragon, then all bets are off. It's going to take revenge on each and every one of the goblins in the tribe. So they could not risk that. So, I take it you guys got a message from me, huh? I was talking a little bit earlier when I started up at 9:30 about this crazy storm that went through last night and knocked out power for 15 hours. So no show this morning, sadly. But here's the makeup show 12 hours later. I had a pretty full day, so I was running around a lot. And it was nice. It was nice to get out and do a couple of things. I made sure I did it in the afternoon when the places that I was going were almost completely vacant. I think I stopped by a Half Price Books down in Rockford, and there were 3 or 4 people in the whole place, plus 2 employees. Everyone was wearing masks. Everybody was social distancing. So I felt pretty good about that. Didn't touch a lot of stuff. I didn't want to... I didn't see a lot of stuff I wanted to check out in any detail anyway. I did grab one book, a Flashing Swords !2. It's an old anthology from the 70s. Look up on Wikipedia, look up Flashing Swords ! And you'll see what's in all of those. It's a great little series. There were 5 in the series, and they're the first publication of short stories that were in later works by a number of authors that are all very well known. You'll see what I mean when you check out the lists. And then I stopped by the Machine Shed, a great family-style restaurant. Got there about 4. Huge dining room in this place, which I knew because I'd been there several times before back in the day. And I think there were only like 2 or 3 tables that were occupied, and I was sitting far, far away from them, so I really only had contact, close interaction, I should say, with one person on the wait staff, and really it wasn't any more than would be if I'd have got something to go. Although I was in there for about an hour, so there is that potential risk. On the other hand, this is the Machine Shed, and they're known for their huge kitchens and huge fans, and one of the things they got a disclaimer about was because those huge fans suck air out of the rest of the place, you're not getting that sort of air and return and recycled and all through the place sort of thing. Everything goes out the kitchen, and then air-conditioned air gets pumped in from elsewhere. And I made sure that I was in an area where I wouldn't be near other people. So, hopefully, safe enough. We will see. It was excellent prime rib. And it's been quite a while since I've been out for a meal. I thought about getting it to go, but after I saw how empty the place was, I felt safe enough. He's seeing me at this hour. Yeah, it's a rarity. I may actually do some late shows toward the end of July because I've got some daytime things I might have to be doing. We will see. In the meantime, tomorrow we'll get back to the 9:30 a.m. schedule, and hopefully for the next couple of weeks that will be the case. And then we'll see about that last week in July for potential evening shows. And this 9:30 thing might be easiest just to do 9:30 at night if I can't do 9:30 a.m. for these, just to make it easy to remember, I guess. So I think I've jibber-jabbered enough about taking this and using it as a virtual one. Before we sign off, let's talk about the fact that this is a single map with what is essentially 4 different levels. You've got this high level here, which has an exit. That's the highest one. You've got this scramble up the rungs exit here, which comes out on the side of the tour. All right, and that's just below this one. This goes down to this level, but it goes down a little further. This one being isolated without an exit of its own from the tour, from the, I don't know, should I just call it a mountain? From the stone, from the rock, from the tour. And then you've got this exit here. So you really have 1, 2, 3, 4 different levels. 5 if you count this little offshoot here. And by the way, I used these as sarcophagi for dwarves. I thought these sections would work pretty well for, with the consideration that prominent dwarves that had worked in this outpost had at one time or another passed and were, in my setting, it's common to set up a crypt on site where somebody has served as a dwarf in this in the dwarven hierarchy. And because there was a commander here, the original commander was set up with a crypt on this level. A couple of the dwarves that worked the forge over here were then set up because they were renowned weaponsmiths and armorers, and they were put here in these crypts. But there's a consideration. So if you separate this map and then do what we talked about with this map, but then separate this map for use in a virtual tabletop environment, this might work best as a map where you don't split it up but just do coverings, where you cover sections so that you can reveal it piecemeal in that way rather than just use it with the dynamic lighting. Because I think, because you've got levels up and levels down and everything, dynamic lighting will show you beyond where you could actually be able to see. If you come up here with dynamic lighting, you'll be able to see around corners and up steps, which you shouldn't be able to look. Now I know there are ways of finagling that a little differently with the settings and the dynamic lighting, but they can get difficult. It's almost better just to block them out completely with objects that you can then shift over to the GM level. And I'm talking Roll20 here. If you're using some other system, good on you. I'm not sure how to advise you on that. But that's my suggestion for these. So there you go. The VTT I use has the ability to do visual and movement layer blocking. Yeah. You're using what, Death Angel Shadow? Which virtual tabletop? Is that Fantasy Grounds or is that Astral or... Oh, and by the way, I know I'm rubbing my eyes, but I've severely washed everything when I got back today. Map tools. Oh, there you go. Yeah, actually forget to mention those when I mention a lot of the virtual tabletops that are out there now. And that is one that's been around about, 15 years? It's a pretty good one. It's been in development, continuous development, for quite a long time, so I'm sure it works pretty smoothly. And the fact that it's free and open source, as you mentioned, both good things for a virtual tabletop if you are a hands-on kind of guy who likes to tinker under the hood with some of those things. Use it for both IRL and online Discord games. Okay. When you say IRL, are you someone who has a game table with a built-in monitor so that you can use the maps and miniatures, in real life? And or do you put up a monitor off to the side and let people see it as they explore so that you can avoid the lag of having people actually map as they go? The monitor inset, one of those, one of these days, but use a big TV as one of the screens. Yeah, nice. Perfect. Well, on that note, I think we are getting close to the half hour, so I'm going to drop that off, pop this back up. We'll stash this out of the way. Should have moved that first. Sorry about that. And we'll just double check the schedule here. Saturday, cartoon from a DM perspective review tomorrow. 6th episode of Conan the Adventurer animated series. Continue with the rules retrospective, looking at the first edition classes. Fighter tomorrow. Weekly news and giveaway on Monday. Tuesday, cartography and world building campaign discussion on Wednesday, with a focus on my own setting of Grimwald. Back to terrain crafting and miniature painting on Thursday, and back around on Friday with more virtual tabletop adventures. Thank you very much for following on Twitch and chiming in the stream chat when you get a chance. If you're on YouTube, please do subscribe and give us a thumbs up. maybe make a comment. It'd be very much appreciated. Thanks again, everybody. Hey, you have a good night, and we will catch you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.